Okay, so this is the volumetric pass. We did two passes. This is what's called the far pass. Having the tower in the middle of this effect meant we needed to render a distant version of it, a near version of it. This is done using a system called hypervoxels in Lightwave. It renders this fluffy kind of particles, like a puff cloud really. It's a technique called ray marching. And obviously this is kind of a particle simulation, so each of these puffs is kind of moving. We then integrate that into the shot. So now we have our far smoke effect. We then have the tower shaking. So this is the opening XR render of the tower reacting to the force of the being hit. And then we integrate that into the shot. And then we have the front volumetric pass. So as you can see, a lot of elements. And we integrate that into the shot. And then finally we have the free pass, so there's lots of flotsam and jetsam being hurled through the air, so this is a simulation of bits of debris. You also see a big lump there, that's a kind of barrel. They wanted something threatening coming at the actress, so we flew a digital barrel through the shot. And then this is what we call our pre-comp, and for those of you who may or may not have seen the series, this is one thing missing from this is good old camera shake. If you're having a violent event, some people love camera shake, and our director was well into that, so pretty much every single one of these shots had camera shake put on it. It actually helps us because it hides stuff. We got wrong!
So you were talking about dialing up the different layers and dialing down. So would that mean that you could have dial up the back smoke or dial it down?
Yes, we can make it more transparent or thicker, you know. Right, the rooftop chase, episode 4. This is taken from a genie boom, so this is our actors walking around our set, as you can see. You're looking off the top of everything, so our matte artists have to fix all of this when we do a shot like this. So this is one of the matte paintings. This was made from a combination of the 3D buildings positioned and then a lot of paint, hand paint work to kind of get all the colours and tie everything in and put it together. So we then got asked to do this chase sequence in episode 4. This is Nonzo, who was the big black guy who was in this particular episode, who was playing this AC who had escaped, and Amy Manson was chasing him through Fort Haven, and he eventually relents and rescues her. I think the term for Nonzo is built like a brick shithouse. He's a really nice guy. So that was part of the sequence is a bit long on that, and I'm just showing you a medley of the shots that made it to the show. This is what we actually shot. This is like VFX plates as we got them. That's the jump there was done by Amy's stunt double, but Amy's quite up for things, and she was more than happy to. This is Amy's stunt double. That's Amy Manson. Amy Manson, who was quite up for being hung off a high. So anyway, this is our setups, the green screen. We were shooting 2 camera, so this is the container that they were running from the top of. You can see the 2 stunt artists up there just getting ready to do the shoot. This is what's known in the trade as a ladder pod. So click your camera on top of a giant set of ladders, very handy. This is the awning, so you can see how close to the ground it was. We have 1 container, and then the green screen, a bit closer than I would like. There's a kind of visual effects rule called the 10-foot rule, which is basically how far away you should have the green screen from any actor at any one time, or any prop. Didn't work in this case because she literally had to tuck her legs under this awning, otherwise she'd be standing on the green screen. And it was like, oh, don't stand on the green screen, it's really expensive. How can I not stand on the green screen? She was very good. some of that was done by the stunt double, so, and she was very fit in the physical. This is the side shot of the street you saw. Again, 2 cameras, so when you see down, it's all shot at the same time. So typically, you know, we're often catering for 2 screens at any one time. So there's Amy. She was quite up to being hung by a cable from there. There is, however, although you probably can't see it, a giant crash mat underneath the green screen at the bottom. So it's not like we're going to let her do a circus act onto concrete. Right, so I'm going to ask you what's wrong with this shot. Have a look at it. Tell me if you can spot anything.
Just
You can see where he's done the jump before.
It's further, you jump it further across, then there's looks like coming down.
Right, let's see if I can pause it on the frame. I don't know if it will work, but right. It's a bit hard to see on this monitor. I would grant you it's a bit of a shame because it's not, the colours are not great. This is the stunt double. Nonzo is a black guy. Now, what happened was the stunt team, who were very good, they had a black guy who was the same build as Nonzo, cute, big bloke, wouldn't take the jump. Yeah, I mean, the stunt double for Amy didn't have any problem. You saw her doing the jump. It's not a huge distance. the actual black guy wouldn't do the jump. So they had to get one of their other stunt guys, unfortunately, white, black him up. But unfortunately, forgot about his back. And basically, you know, if you actually see it on TV, you can see it's you know, skin colour, white skin colour. But everybody thought, okay, it looks like a t-shirt. Let's leave it. So there you go.
He's an AC.
He's an AC.
Multi-coloured.
Might be multi-coloured under there. This is for Liz. She kept saying to me, the water genie, how's that done? This is a lake that was near Tambalatu. There was a lot where we were shooting, and a number of shots were done here for episode 3. There was a bit more water in it here when we took the recce photographs and when we actually had a shoot, which seemed to be our lot in Africa. Every time we came back to a lake, it half emptied on us. Like the Jamie Bamber one, you know, when you used all those sticks sticking out of the water. When we actually went into the recce, there was a foot of wood sticking out of the water. When we went back, these things were like 12 foot high. But hey, we still got on with it. This is the view that we actually ended up using. All shot lock-offs, thankfully, so any moves that are in there were put on after the event. Now I've got some of the elements for this, so hopefully this will get an idea. This is quite a complex thing, so it's a bit hard for me to show everything, because it really is complex. The guy that did this is working at a much bigger company now, getting paid a lot more money. This is the actual sequence from the show. And as the moons come into their thing, they track the water and yank it into the air, and there's lots of electrical arcing. Rudy, the AC, sees this. I'm not cutting, in the show you cut back to him. This is just the visual effects shots cut together, so it's a bit discontinuous. So that's the actual shots, and you saw the plates. We literally just shot clean plates. The CG is all done with fluid simulations. A bit, again, a bit hard to see. I don't know if we can kill these lights a bit, but a bit late now. Don't worry. The first stuff we saw there was very fine particle. You saw it in the actual shots. It's like a misty type particle. This is all fluid simulation, so this is all done by computers. Fluid simulation's been around for about 5 years commercially, become a lot easier to do, and these are some of the passes that we generated that were then brought together in the composite to actually build up the Water Genie. The Water Genie went through unbelievable number of changes. Nobody could make their mind up about it. You know, the director had his view, the producer had his view. We did loads and loads and loads of different versions of it. But you know, again, like most things, you know, we render these bits in the computer. They all come out in elements like this, and they all get layered on top of each other and balanced together again. So the Water Genie is made up of about 8 or 9 different pieces of some here. There's a doming effect on the water of the lake. There was this fine particulate stuff around the periphery, and then there was the thick water column that was doing its thing. This is actually one of the early tests. Looks nice though, I like it. This is one of the whiteout shots for Fort Haven. This is just showing you a breakdown. At the end of episode 3, big storm hits Fort Haven, and they wanted some kind of big money shots. This is CT1 in the city being struck by the volumetric sort of storm coming in. Again, completely computer generated. It's the only real way to do this sort of thing. The main reason of being the fact they wanted this dimensional move, they wanted a camera move, and you know, nobody can really afford to do miniatures these days anyway on television very much. They're still quite expensive, so CG ends up being the kind of choice for doing a lot of this sort of stuff. The only downside to that was the render times. The volumetric cloud as it came over the ship and hit camera. The system that they use in Lower to do that is quite an old system for ray marching. I got really worried when we hit 400 hours a frame on render time. So I said, can we stop this and try and optimise it a bit? Because at this rate, the show will be on air and gone by the time we've finished doing this stuff. Right, I mentioned blue screen, green screen before. We're back at Lawrenceford here for the whiteout. This is where Danny is carrying his fallen comrade who was at the Earth Beacon back to Fort Haven after surviving the storm. This is an example of using blue screen in broad sunlight outdoors. The reason for having a blue screen there is because they wanted to do some heavy alterations of the shot, and there is a wider version of the shot where the hills are all matte painted to look like a storm's hit them, so there's a lot of white dust everywhere, the plants will be coloured, and to be able to do that for the long shot and the close-up required us to isolate the actors. So this shows you how the shots went together on this go. So Danny Mays carrying an actor for real. Keep moaning about that. Then we're grading in the background on this sort of thing, kind of painted in. And it's got quite a big discoloration there. Everybody's covered in dust, a very kind of muted kind of feel to the whole thing. So, right, cloning a president. Jamie Payne, who was the Block 8 director, towards the end of the show, as you know, Tate started seeing a duplicate of himself that the planet had created. And Jamie's done quite a lot of TV work. He's done Primeval quite a bit among other shows, so he's quite au fait with visual effects. And he was certainly au fait with the fact that, typically when you want to do two people together in the same scene, you do a thing called a lock-off and a split screen. So you literally have somebody here and you shoot them, and you don't touch the camera, and you have the same actor move over there and you shoot them, and then you put a split down the middle and you have two people together. It's very easy to do. It's what King Jonathan's been forced to do repeatedly on every show he's ever worked in, Cobb. And he gave to me and said, look, is there any way we can do a more interesting double shot that has a camera move on it? And of course, being the BBC and no motion control. So normally what we do is we'd hire a motion control camera. A motion control camera is basically a camera, computer controlled camera rig on rails. You can program it to repeat exactly. So if you want a camera move, you can program this rig to do the move, and then each time you move your actor to a new position, the rig will replay the move exactly the same, which means that when you split the shot in, you don't have any slippage and everything works. Unfortunately, no luxury for that. So we had to come up with another way of doing the shot, which you can kind of see the start of there, that circular track on the ground. And I'm hoping we have audio soon, because the idea of this shot was to have the camera dolly on one side and a green screen opposite, so you could go behind the actor, which had to be gripped around. So to test out this idea, I've got the wonderful assistant, my beautiful assistant, because sometimes they say, well, how is that really going to work? And you go, well, look, I'll show you the concept, and this is just handheld, obviously, so it's rubbish, but the idea is you go around somebody with a the green screen behind them as one pass, and then you go in the set and you do the same thing again with the person in the other position. And then what you end up with when you combine the two together is you end up with basically going behind the person and then seeing them the other side of the room. Okay, so you've been able to isolate one of the people. So this is kind of what I did to sell the idea to the director, to say, look, you know, this is how it's going to work. And what we do now is let myself speak for myself. Because this is off TV.
Hello, my name's Alan Marques. I'm the VFX Supervisor on Outcasts. President Tate, played by Liam Cunningham, basically meets his doppelganger.
Poor miserable human. Why are you torturing us? What is sent to you? Will you force us? Surely you can understand that.
Normally on TV shows we basically do this in a very simple manner. We lock the camera off, don't move it, we shoot the actor one side of the frame, and then we move to the other side of the frame and get him to do the other role, put the two different takes together. Jamie wanted to know if we could do something a bit more complex. In the ideal world we would use computer control camera constraints and stuff, and we couldn't really work with one of those. I had to come up with a way of producing this effect where we can move the camera.
I thought it was really important that when we've got real Tate and false Tate, that we don't do the poor man's version, which is lock off wide, and we actually get to see them interacting.
But to come up with a technique, I used a 3D computer graphics pre-visualization tool, and if I play this, you'll see one of the characters walking in. Here's the other avatar, so they're both supposed to be identical. And I've set up a camera track with the camera moving around with this moving green screen in the background. We then do a separate shoot of Liam in the other position as he comes in the room without the green screen. We end up with these two types of takes. So here is our green screen element. So basically the screen moves around behind the actor, stays always with him, so we can composite him over a different background. We then reset, put Liam into the other position as the action comes in, and then basically we do the same move again on the dolly with the camera crew, as all achieved with just very careful camera work on the day. And if there are any discrepancies in the timing of the shot, we can use retiming software to change the length of the actual green screen element to make it match the live action even better.
So the reason that worked is because you couldn't see the feet on the ground. The human eye and brain is very forgiving about certain things when it can't see them. And the camera crew are really good, and you do need a good cameraman and you do need a good grip, because they have to kind of do the same move, and they're human and they're not a computer, so they can't actually do it exactly the same each time. Grips, if you watch them professionally, are very good. You'll see them do the thing, they'll put tape marks on the track and they'll be pushing, and they'll always end on the same mark. There's always going to be a slight difference in how fast they push each time, subtle things like that. The cameraman is sitting there and he's panning with the action, so he's moving the camera head on the tripod. Again, he will not be able to repeat perfectly. But because it was a torso shot, it's amazing how much slippage can happen between the foreground and the background before you realise something's wrong completely. And we did quite a lot of tests and realised we could get away with quite a bit. So ended up working quite well actually. In the last show, the virus turned up. There was reference to it in the first episode when Tate said his children had died from, I think it was C-23. This is Michael Snyman, our great South African cameraman, and that's Michael Legg, who plays Tipper, who gets the C-24 virus. The virus went through a lot of changes. They weren't sure what they wanted. We even did some early R&D out in South Africa. One guys were doing it in London, sending it over to me. And it changed hugely. I actually shot this. This is a little medley of early tests. This is one of the art department ladies. A bit over the top, that one, I think. We were trying to find interesting ways of, because there's reference to the fact the virus was visible, and was it like a halo. In the script, it was always described as a glowing golden halo, and everybody thought that was a bit too godlike, you know. And we went through a whole load of things, and they said, well, actually, we just don't think it. You know, I mean, if you saw the episode, you see it a bit with Lily when she's in the dark room in Tipper's shack, and you see it around her head. Ultimately, when Tipper got it full blown, they wanted something different. This is how that was done. It was it almost looked like a makeup effect in the end, but again, this is one of the things, you know, directors are saying, I want this. So again, we were using a 3D compositing system and what's called warping to track the face of the actor there, and actually position his texture onto the skin, so that basically when he moved his head or spoke, you would see the texture stick to the surface of the skin, and actually look like it was, you know, there for real, almost like a makeup effect. But what we could do with it, because it was CG, was we could make it pulse and come and go. And if you actually see the shots on the show on a decent TV, you'll see that the effect is fading in and out constantly, and kind of coming and going. So that was the virus, which appeared in episode 8. Right, Coble Bay. I love Coble Bay. So here's Amy and Danny down in Coble Bay, where Hank ultimately dies. This is another classic visual effects kind of situation you get caught in on shows. So again, you have to kind of think on your feet. Out of the 4 directors on the show, only one of the directors managed to finish his shoot days on time. Every single other director went over, or they failed to make the shoot days. Barrett, being the lead director, was given the privilege of shooting over for 3 extra days. But the directors that followed into that then had to, you know, they didn't have the option, and literally you would not make shots, you would miss a shot, and no way you were going to pick it up or do it. This happened at Coble Bay on episode 5. We ran out of shoot time because the sun goes down, funny enough, and you can't actually ask it to stop. So what you do, right, when this happens, is you get the art department to make a beach for you. They said, well, look, you know, we're shooting at Lawrenceford, let's bring some of the sand in, and we make a beach, and we get Danny and Amy to sit in the same position, you know, to get this type of shot that we want. So they set the camera up to get this over-the-shoulder shot. Again, notice the green screen is in the shade. And this is the shot. This is what it looks like. It's an kind of behind, low, over-shoulder shot with Gary Lewis, who you can't really see, but dead in front of them. And obviously, you know, to make this shot work, what you need is you need the background plate. Now, so we've got the foreground plate. This is our green screen element. So I now need a nice C plate at Coble Bay, which I wasn't expecting, because they said, let's go and shoot the pickup at Lawrenceford. Yeah, but we don't have a C plate. Oh yeah, we can sort that. Fine, okay. So I then go to the line producer on a weekly basis, and I go, you know, can I have an RAD21 to go back to Coble Bay and shoot the background plate? And she goes, no, not this week. And this goes on for like 5 weeks. And we get to the last week before we fly back to the UK, and it's blindingly obvious I'm not going to get a D21 to shoot the plate. So I'd spotted the fact. I had a venerable Canon D40 or 40D, I can't remember how the... Sorry? 40D, look, Nikon did it the other way around, really annoying. I had a venerable Canon 40D for stills, but it predated the fad for putting video on digital SLRs. And it just so happened the line producer's husband, who was house husband because he had the kids while she was working in South Africa, he had the same camera that Linda now has, which is a 550D, which is the entry-level Canon, which does shoot high-definition video. So I went, can I borrow it? And they said yes. So having all the camera information, because being a good supervisor, you know exactly how high the camera is off the ground, you know what tilt is, you know what lens was used. We ended up going back to Coble Bay. This is what we should have had, D21. What we ended up with was a Canon 550. And unfortunately, the problem with the 550 is that the viewfinder, the LCD is on the back of it. Now, the camera at Lawrenceford was like this high off the ground. So to get the same shot at Coton Bay, I had to lie on the beach, which wasn't fun. If you buy the later camera, like the 600D and the 60, have now got swivel screens, because Canon figured a lot of people really wanted a swivel screen for this reason. So this is actually shot with a 550 digital SLR. Interesting enough, I shot a load of stuff, and my HD camera actually went in the show. They used it. They said, "Do you have any C plates? We just want to cut to C, we didn't shoot them." And actually some of my stuff's in there. So once you have this, you then do your comp. And so that's our finished comp with a 550D background plate. We were worried about the colour space not working, but we were surprised how well it held up, because the foreground being shot on a D21 had a much higher dynamic range that the Arris capture for grading, whereas a Canon, is using ABC HD codec and it's 8-bit, and there's not a lot of room to change the colour space or change the highlights bit. It worked really well. It doesn't look great on this screen up there. Looks great here. So that was basically how we survived that one. So the tip there is, if you're ever going on a shoot, make sure you take a good digital stills camera that does video, a nice set of lenses with
particularly if you work for the BBC.
Sorry?
Particularly if you work for the BBC.
Particularly if you work for the BBC.
I was going to ask Alan, if it's getting that easy, inverted commas, to, again, cheat, are directors who are getting used to this getting lazy, but think we can sort it out later?
That always happens, regardless, to be honest. I mean, I'm doing a film with a director called Dave McKean at the moment. If anybody ever seen a film called Mirror Master, he's also well known for his design work, and he's worked a lot with Neil Gaiman. Dave McKean shoots on anything he can lay his hands on. The film I'm working on at the moment has footage from his own 5D Mark II Canon. It has footage from one of those little flip cameras. It has footage from Arri D20, which precedes this, which is the main film was shot on. I think it's even got some Super 8 footage in it. I mean, some directors just don't worry about the format and the technicalities of the format. I mean, there is a number of shots in episode 7, I think, actually 8, with the ACs up at Grabo, where the EPK crew, the people that do the behind the scenes, and they turned up early in the morning at Grabo to shoot the AC cam, and the director said, "Oh, the cameras take a while to turn on. The D21s, they have to warm up, very digital. Modern one's much better." So the sun was coming up, and he said, "Look, you've got a Canon 5D Mark II, and you've got a Canon 7D. Come over here, we'll shoot this." So they actually shot a shot of Rudy coming in the morning over the rocks, and it's in the show. So those two were shots on 5D Canon. So, I think we're going to see a lot more of that sort of stuff happening. Graders hate it. I mean, I remember the colourist at the farm spitting blood when he heard there was some digital SLR stuff in the show. Fortunately, we didn't tell him about it. There you go.
Have you seen the episode of House where they end up they shot the entire episode for 5D?
It's quite possible. There are some issues about shooting SLRs. I don't know if you know what they are.
It's the one where there's been a house collapse or bus crash. They realised they couldn't get any of the normal cameras in under the bus where the patient was. So they filmed those bits of 5D and then said, "This is so good," they filmed the entire episode using a commercial 5D.
Yeah. The problem with digital SLRs is they do have a problem they have a definite problem with visual effects if they're moving. The still cameras, CMOS chips, are the common technology that's in digital still cameras, and they're also now in a lot of prosumer camcorders. And the CMOS chip was never designed for video; it was designed for still image capture, and it works very differently to the way TV and TV cameras work. TV camera does the line-by-line scan thing, because TV's 25, frames a second, 50 lines, and basically it goes top to bottom, one line after the other, and it does it exactly in 25th of a second. What it does is, or 5th of a second, it does the odd lines first, snapshots them, and then it does the even lines and snapshots them. The CMOS doesn't work like that. The CMOS is actually downloaded line by line off the chip onto the storage system. So the first line comes off first, and there's a millisecond delay between each line coming off the chip. So if you pan a CMOS camera, all your verticals will shear, because by the time you're panning, the top line has been downloaded, and by the time you finish, the bottom line at the bottom of the chip has been downloaded, and the And if you see it, and this is what the digital SLRs suffer from, and they also suffer from moire. And if you point them at the pattern will crawl really badly because of the way they do the subsample. So they're great, and Canon know that people want this fixed. And in fact, they've brought out a thing called the C300 on the 3rd of November, which is their version of the Red, which is a digital SLR chip, full frame CMOS camera designed for video, where they've reduced all the quantity. Unfortunately, it's $20,000 for corrections, but you know. But I'm a great fan of this technology. I mean, you know, the reason it's difficult for visual effects is when that shearing occurs, you can't match move, because match moving works on analysing frame by frame, and temporally the frame has to be intact. If the frame is temporally delayed and sheared, the match move can't figure out the lens geometry. So you have to then run software, and you can now buy software to try and correct what's called rolling shutter. The term is called rolling shutter because it rolls constantly down the frame. Anyway, sorry, boring, technical. Anyway.
Question for you. Given the amount of overlays and that example you did in post-production, that final shot there is a good example. Are we actually getting to the point where the technology is now so advanced that we could start to see the end of location shooting?
Well, we're already getting virtual films, as you know, 300. I mean, they're very stylised at the moment, but we are getting to the point where films are fully virtual. You know, I mean, everybody makes the point that Avatar isn't really a 3D stereo film, it's a CG stereo film, because all the stuff, when they're aliens, is fully stereo in 3D. I don't think we'll get that yet, because it's all down to, there's a number of things that control shows. One is the director's creative sensibility on the look of the show. If you want something in the virtual world, then fine. But you know, if you're trying to put everything into the real world and make it feel real and not have everybody think, oh, we know it's a fake shot, there's something funny about it, then you know, I think it's going to be a while before people go away from, you know, shooting for real. I mean, that last shot you saw, you know, you can make a bad version of that shot. I mean, well, everything I do is, well, I like to call, it was termed by somebody else, but we don't have time to go, but the jargon like computer-generated imagery, it's actually AGI, it's artist-generated imagery. It's the person that's doing the job that counts. That comp could have looked appalling if I had given it to somebody to know what they're doing, and everybody would have said, oh, it's even bothered, you know.
Yeah.
So you still have to have good people to make the stuff look good, and not, I mean, in Terra Nova episode 2, there's a really bad comp when they're standing on top of this kind of cliff looking down on the city from above, and it's just like not even lit properly. The comps, and I'm just sitting there going, oh, cool, blimey, I'm glad I didn't do that one. You can always be a critic about people's work. Thank you very much.